Hi Karen, you asked me to talk about the electricity. Well, the first thing is we can look at the etymology of it. If we substitute the E for the A, it's all act tricks. Now traditionally in household wiring, the live wire was red and the neutral wire was black in the plastic coating around the wires, which is always associated with the devil. There's different types of electricity, but what actually is electricity first off? The best explanation that I could refer anybody to is Ken Wheeler, Theoria Apophasis Channel. That's Ken Wheeler. It's the consubstantiality of the dielectric and the magnetism. So the dielectric, if we see it in terms of like a nuclear bomb, it's the potential. The thing that everybody's wowed by when you see that mushroom cloud that looks very much like a brain, that's the extrinsic side of it, that's the magnetism. That's the loss of the energy that then folds back in on itself. It's basically an ideal field. Now, electricity is one of those strange phenomena that you can't actually see, a bit like the wind. You can only feel it or see the interaction of it with something else, like with the wind you see a tree swaying in the breeze. Now, let's try a little experiment here. Now, if by any chance you have someone who's what you would call a Christian literalist, and I was to say to them, there's an archangel, it's basically a human being who has a greater knowledge of the use of electricity, hence the term arc. They may take offence at that because it conflicts with their belief. So that sensation inside is like a static electricity inside, because it needs to come out, as it were. It needs to be expressed if the person is not in control of their emotions. If you think about it, if you put a woolen sweater on, when you take it off, you get that static electricity. The body naturally generates. It's everywhere. It's, I suppose, an energy equivalent, or just another label for ether, really. But like everything else in this realm, everything, and it's reflected in the material world, even something like YouTube, to be able to use it, you have to sign up and accept the terms and conditions. So if we think about, well, the terms is a period of time, the conditions, this is the key thing why all that is speculated on about natural electricity in the ether, the conditions are not right at this time. It requires the return of a vapor canopy. What is a vapor canopy? It's when you have ambient radiation where the sun would be blocked out by volcanic ash. So it would create a purple sky. So effectively, what you would see up above would then act like a magnifying glass. This is the reason why you get stories of ancient tribes, to their tradition, they talk about stars that you can't see with the naked eye, which is true. In today's conditions, you can't see them. But the stars would look to be a lot closer if there was this change in the conditions, which is coming in about 15 and a half years' time. It's the Phoenix event of 2040. It's a strange phenomenon. Electricity is not something that can be seen. So if you see a telegraph wire that snaps and it comes into contact with the ground, you get that spark. It's the outcome that you're seeing of the electricity rather than the electricity itself. But it's interesting what Angel was saying on the video, and I I feel is spot on about the Great Pyramid as a function was to separate the hydrogen from the oxygen. But of course it requires the conditions to be right. I mean, it's within the photographic age. You can find pictures during the flood season where the water is right up to almost to this Great Pyramid and the other two, because the Nile Delta will flood at certain times of year. It's the Fertile Crescent. But people will say about rising sea levels and things, it's not the sea that actually rises, it's the ground that is moving. The sea level doesn't change at all. This is backed up by geology, where you get this layering effect of, and it can be seen as the polarity is continuously flipping between the two, so you get layering of rocks and things which are all sort of placed down. Further evidence is rotting matter at the bottom of an ocean where there was once a river, or in some cases you even get rivers below oceans. Because the salt water, it's a perfect conductor of electricity as well, water in itself, but certainly salt water would be an even greater conduit. Excuse me. So I would even go so far as to say, when you look up at the sky, whether you're looking in daylight and seeing what you would call the sun, or in the night sky the stars and the moon, and you notice some of the stars twinkle, some do not. What I feel you're actually seeing is a frequency, possibly electric, that as it comes into contact with the firmament, you are getting what looks to be things up in the sky, but everything in this reality is a reflection. And coming back onto the topic of electricity, for example, what we've got in this material world is an electricity that is not from nature as such. It begs the question of where is that energy still being used today? For example, if we talk about the decommissioning of a church, are we talking about its functional abilities or its religious usage of that building? Do they still operate? Because we're told they have these earthing cables down the doors, that so they don't get, or if they do get struck, it doesn't destroy the tower of a church, for example. But I wonder if there is actually a different function and that energy is still being used. Certainly what Danger was saying about what you could say would be the peasant class who had no use for electricity, there was no practical advantage to it, would have seen it as a nuisance. And interestingly, and you can't find this on the web anymore, I believe it was in the 16th and 1600s and the 1700s, there was these displays put on in London and other places, and they basically had, they looked like swords, but they would be totally impractical to be used as weapons, and they were basically used for arcing, so it was put on like a magic effect. Now, arcing I find a very interesting word. When you consider most cities like London has the Wellington Arch and Marble Arch, I wonder if those archways had some function of de-electrifying people as they came into a city, so if they had knowledge of the use of how to draw on the natural atmospheric electricity, that they couldn't use it as a weapon. It would depend on what these archways are constructed from, and I can also see a similarity to certain components on a circuit board which are soldered to the board, say something like a a resistor or a diode, and you'll have the two prongs, or three I think in the case of the diode, and they're soldered. There certainly seems to be an ancient knowledge of the use of how to harness and use electricity for various means, but of course it's like so much else in this reality we're in today. We're basically sold back an electricity that is generated from destruction, but at the same time that is not totally true, because the resources that are being drawn on are not running out. They will not run out for as long as this reality, this thing called Earth, exists. Coal is quite easy to make, that has been proven. It's basically under compression. It is possible to actually make coal. I forget where it was. It was a seam of coal that suddenly appeared through a volcanic eruption. I can't even remember where it is off the top of my head. But yeah, so we're in a world now where we're almost being pushed to adopt electric for everything as a power source, be it garden tools, cars, things for the home. But we're basically, as I said, there is already a one world religion. It's called pagan, because everybody pays again instead of having the atmospheric electricity, which would be the true renewable source, because the solar panels aren't going to work with this return of this vapor canopy anyway. Things will be very different. It will be more like a tropical environment with a moistening with dew rather than rain. Basically the way it's explained in Genesis. It will be a return to that, as it were. Again, it comes down to terms and conditions. But another example enough, I've just made a video about where I've sort of launched doing individual 3-card tarot card readings. But what I've said on that, with the tarot card readers, and I'm thinking specifically of general tarot card readings, if you watch when they shuffle, some of the cards will just seem to fly out. There is a tie-up between the artwork, which is creativity, in the image on the card, the ability of the reader to read the cards. There's also the aspect of it's your higher self talking to your lower self on a sort of bypass route, because the very fact that a person goes for a tarot card reading is to seek advice, or that's what it should be. If we look at the word tarot, it's tor and at. You're at a door. It's not about fortune telling or anything like that. We're getting a little bit off topic from electricity, but basically when the cards fly out, that is a form of electricity at work there. In the spiritual sense, it's as if a spiritual hand is actually pulling those cards out, and there's an interaction between the toroidal field with the natural electricity and the external world. We're basically magnetic beings. We radiate out an energy, and it works like a magnet in which it will draw the same energy towards you. Basically, that's what electricity is. It's an expression of a form of energy that can be harnessed, but the way it's been done in this reality is running the anti-nature program, but there's nothing to fear about it. The thing with like the household electricity is to treat it with respect, don't do stupid things with it, and you won't come to any harm. But this is quite a broad subject, so that's a little sort of overview, bringing into the equation how the human body fits into the scheme of things with electricity, and also which ties in with the Great Pyramid of Giza. Effectively, what you've got there, if you were to flatten a pyramid into two dimensions, you've got a pentagram, so it's representing 5 senses. It's an architectural representation. See, there's the word arc in architecture. Arcing comes in an awful lot into things, what with archangel or archangel, arch enemy, archways into cities and things. It's a huge subject, and of course in London you've got Marble Arch as well. I feel it would be lovely to have an X-ray and see how that is actually constructed, because I'm sure that would give far more telltale signs of what the true functions of these gateways actually are. There's a few things to think about there, and way up. I'm not saying it's the absolute truth, I'm just giving a perspective on how I see things with this. But we're up to 16 minutes, so there's a video for you, Karen, and running with the idea that it's turned into a video. Thank you everybody for listening, and hopefully this will make some sort of sense of things to you.
Hey everybody, we're here today with our Gary. Hello Gary.
Gary or Galactic Gal, whatever suits you best, Karen. You know, I mean, it's been a long time, hasn't it? I've been so busy, like with my my charity stuff, like, you know. It's been very difficult, actually. You know, it does take up a fair bit of my time. You know, it's only volunteering, but I really quite enjoy it. You know, and I meet some lovely people like down there, and we meet up tomorrow, like
well,
down here.
That's very good of you, Gary, isn't it? Because it's a charity thing. It's a voluntary thing, isn't it?
It's a voluntary thing, and like, you know, I suppose if I was to be employed, like, I'd probably be. It costs like 20. You know, I'm probably worth 25 odd grand a year. You know, and I had to do training for it, and I had to get a police check, which I'm going for my enhanced police check at the moment, which it takes such a long time to go through because they go back further in history. You know, but it's all in hand.
I suppose you're dealing with people, aren't you? So they have to check. I have the same thing with my job, even though I've got one from one school. Because it doesn't say the school I'm at, I've got to have another one.
Well, what it basically is, you see, because you're sort of like dealing with people with end-of-life care, there's some despicable people out there.
Yeah, children are around me.
Despicable people like that. You get some old girl on her deathbed, and they get, believe it or not, these things have happened where the carer has got her to change her will like the 11th hour or whatever, you know. So now they're really stringent about checking people's past, like that they haven't got sort of like some skullduggery years back, you know. All they're going to find with me, like, is a few motoring offences here and there. You know, they're not going to find much with me. But yeah, I really enjoy it, you know. But it does, it's draining sometimes, you know. But I see different people with various different issues. I think it's. I can correspond with them because I've had both. Some people got mental health issues, other people got physical. Well, I've dealt with both in my life, Karen, as you know. So I think I understand where they're coming from.
It's really nice that you do that because you volunteer and do it, and you do enjoy it though, don't you?
I do enjoy it, and I meet some wonderful people in it. I felt quite almost tearful this week actually, because two of them turned around and said, one of them, I don't actually like this group, but he likes this heavy metal group, Iron Maiden, and he said to me, he said, I want you to come with me, Gal, and I'll buy you a ticket like with £78. And I said, don't be stupid. I said, number one, I don't like it. And he said, two, like, it's right up, we're not together, like, I'm down the bottom and you're up the top. So I said, don't worry about it, Dave. I said, I'll tell you what we'll do. When it's on, he wants to watch it down in West Ham's ground, I think it's on, like, or the old, where they had the 2012 Olympic Games, it's around there somewhere. And I said, I'll tell you what to do. You just drop me at the pub, like, and when it's finished, like, we'll go home from there, you know. So they're very fond of me. And the other one said to me, he said he wants to take me to sort of like to see a Queen tribute act, like Majesty it's called. It's meant to be the best Queen and he said, I've treated to it, and it's quite touching, actually. You know, they're sort of like, it's been a couple of years now, Karen, and these people have really become quite attached.
I suppose it's quite difficult for you because they kind of turn into friends, don't they?
Yeah, they have turned into friends now. I mean, the only one I have to take my pass like is a guy I see like on the Wednesday, who's he had at one time he had a stroke, like, you know, he was in a coma, so he has different carers that actually live in. So I actually turned around and said to the charity, I said, you're gonna have to get my sister said this. You've got to get a pass, an ID pass with your photograph, gal, because it's not fair, like, because if I was a carer there, like, and you just turned up, you know, how do they know who you are, you know? So they did. They given me, like, a proper little pass, but the other two are just, like, friends, like, on Thursday, like, I'm meeting the guy and
you've
going...
gone on holiday with one of them, haven't you, to help her? Because, you know, you went on holiday.
Yeah. I took one of them abroad, like, you know, and that was quite a challenge, like, especially like she's paraplegic. But no, it's all good, and you know, obviously I've got my own health issues myself, but yeah, it's very like how can I put it? You get a good feel good factor out of it, you know. It's, you know, so like I said, sometimes it can be quite challenging, but no, it's all good. And I needed something in my life, Karen. You know, I needed some stimulus. I always do. Like, and if I don't
you
find
go down the
stimulus,
gym all the time.
Well, I try to go down the gym because of my arthritis. Like, you know, it's so bad. I go down the gym and do a lot of stretching and stuff. You know, I can't really do much like what I used to do because of my various sort of like health issues, but I do try and keep as fit as humanly possible with what I've got, you know. I mean, I see a lot of people where I live, they tend to sort of like basically give up, to be honest with you. They just sort of like, you know, they don't sort of like get out much, and trouble is things start seizing up. Once that happens, you know, all your joints start seizing up. Before you know it, like, you know, boom, you're laid up and you can't go out if you wanted to, so I don't want that to happen, you know. Anyway,
that's a little catch up on Gary's life.
Yeah, I mean, what else been happening? Well, you know, I mean, obviously, like
some of the subjects we're going to talk about that have interested you in the last few weeks, aren't we?
Yes.
Let's just start right, because up on the screen is the Mandela effect. I just want to talk to them about this very thing because they're saying, oh well, this person realised that it was a false memory that they had of Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. But I saw it. I thought, you know what it is so much happens. Maybe you've got married, you've had kids, you just forget, and then you forget. Oh, hang on a second. So, yeah, in this article on the internet, what it's talking about is that they're saying that she has a false memory of Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. But I saw that. But I said, we get married, we forget things. There's so many headlines you just don't remember. And then you forgot that he was made president, or whatever you want to call it, of Africa. But then what it was is when someone like nudges you and says, did you know about that Mandela thing of him? And you think, oh yes, I know where I was. I was watching the television in my mum's kitchen. It definitely happened. Said he was dead, and we know that they play games with us. It's all their game, isn't it?
Well, we've actually progressed from this now, right, Karen? Because we're a few years down the line, and one of my friends, like system failure, like Mark, the Irish fella, like, you know, he had a good Mandela effect channel. I haven't seen him for a few years, but there's another geezer I watch now. His name's John Kerr, and he's from the States, and he's a preacher. He's been a preacher for 40 years now. I don't know if you know or any listeners know, but there's been a hell of a lot of Bible changes. The Bible is changing, and it's changing retroactively.
Yeah, but you know what? I made a video about it. They're going to take the word church out. And you think, but church means the people. So why are they taking the people out? What, because nobody goes to church anymore?
Yeah, well, this is what he's done. He's made a list of 10 questions to ask sort of like 10 sort of like preachers. And they're relatively simple questions, and they're getting 10 wrong. And so basically, he's calculated the odds, and it's like 2 Google odds of being impossible to not get it wrong. A Google is 1 followed by 100 noughts, and that's 2. So basically, impossible. They're getting, put it this way, it would be like asking a driving examiner, right, 10 questions, relatively easy, you know, what comes after sort of like a red light or something, and all of them getting it wrong. Because when they were taught the Bible, you know, whenever it was, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they said like the lion lays with a lamb. Well, now that's not in there anymore, and it's changing. We don't know. It's a supernatural event. The thing is, you know, a lot of people like the naysayers like have been saying like, well, we need some positive proof.
You know, we have one that they definitely did. We used to call them marathon bars. And in America, they were called Snickers. When I was 16, I saw them and I bought them. They were Snickers. And then we got Snickers. So they changed that one over okay. But it's like they do the same thing, but they don't tell you they've changed it.
Yeah, sometimes they actually do change like name brands and whatever. But what we're saying is you can go and get a Bible out of your attic that's 100 years old, and you can turn around and say, well, I remember like it was saying like the lion lays with a lamb. And now it doesn't. It says the wolf. It says the wolf.
How do they do it, Gary? Because there's an old map of America that's got every name of every country, like Paris, London, Berlin, places in the Middle East on this map, right? And they managed. Memphis is still there, but they managed to take most of them out. Well, some of them are still there, but nobody realises. So they're able to do that. They're able to change that so that no one sort of remembers the change. It's incredible. Yeah. And listen very quickly, right? I've got a video. It hasn't gone out yet. It's not my video. Someone put a post out. They were saying that 1771, it might be 1772, whoops, sorry, I'm not looking at it, is a false year. It never happened. And then they're saying basically what's happened is Jesus was born in 1752, whenever it was, 1751, 1752, and they've added hundreds of years. And I thought, I knew religion wasn't very old. We were pagans.
No, the thing is, I think like we've been lied to about what our reality actually is. And, you know, we spoke about this before, where everything like is bricks and mortar and one thing or another. So if you have sort of like, say you got 10 preachers and they all give the wrong answer to what they was taught, something has happened in their Bible, and they're sort of like getting to the point whereby.
But I had it a different way when I told that minister that lived, well, he's called a creator, but it's the same sort of thing, in that church down the road from Mickey, because I'd worked it all out that there was only one religion, right? It's Catholic. And what they did was to make the other religions, or the part of the Catholic Church, but they changed where you got your sin from. So like Calvinist Protestants believed you always had your sin, it comes with you. Whereas Catholics believe you get your sin when you come here. So all they did was put these different things into these other religions. But I read it, it's on one of my videos. It says that everybody is still christened by the Trinity, and the Trinity is Catholic. And then when you look up, how do we not know this? Protestant means protesting Catholic. So we're still Catholics protesting. Charles is a Catholic king. We all think he's Protestant and a different religion. How can they get away with all this? What, were our parents so blind or dumb or deaf or what? Well, they just, oh look, there's a television, lap it up. What is it?
To be honest with you, I think we're the first generation that's sort of like been able to see through everything, because I think that everyone was so dumbed down before, like they just accepted anything they were given.
And they don't forget they had the First and Second World War.
Well, my father's passed away now. If he was alive, he'd be in his late 90s, but he passed away a very long time ago, and you know, he was a commando in the Second World War. You know, it would be very difficult for me. Wouldn't have to turn around and say to him, "You fought in a scripted war." You got to be careful what you tell people, and because you know
people can shout or whatever at me and say, "Don't be so ridiculous," but I actually think that we bombed ourselves and they bombed themselves and pretended there was this war. Because me and Mickey looked up a map of London and it was covered, absolutely covered in bombs. If we had an air force looking after us, how come London got so bombed?
Yeah. Well, yeah, Yeah, I mean, we just don't know, do we? I mean, we don't know.
And don't forget,
really, like, you know,
it was. I think it was you said that people in the war, they were protesting about having to blank out their windows when they never heard a plane. They heard bombs, they heard other things, but they didn't hear planes.
Well, you can work this one out. It's quite easy, really. I mean, look what our people are indoctrinated these days, like with watching the TV, when they sort of like say something on the news, like with a thing that happened a few years ago, and everyone's rushing out to go and get masks and this, that, and the other. You imagine at a time when we didn't have TV, it was probably easier for them. It was probably easier for them to sort of like, you know,
yeah, cameras on the phones. People can go, well, I was there and it was like this.
The good thing we got these days, like we've got the internet and our phones, like
yeah. So they don't want us talking to each other, but it has worked for us. But you know, if you're on Facebook and that, and YouTube and all those things, if they don't like you, they just cut you out. People won't even know you existed.
But back to the Mandela effect. I mean, we don't know what's actually causing it. No one does. Everyone's got different theories.
I told you what I thought it was. I think when you wake up, you cause the Mandela effect, because now your belief system's totally different.
Well, do you know something? I've also sussed out something else. It tends to work a lot on people are not going to like what I'm going to say here, Karen, and I'm going to get a lot of people going to go, oh, to wring Gary's neck. Listen, the Bible was written by man from God, but we don't know like whether the Bible was corrupted like many years ago, do we? You know, anything.
Well, if that guy's telling the truth about the years, then Jesus wasn't even born that long ago.
Well, we know sort of like so much has gone in the last few years, what we've, you know, other stuff we've done. Could it be possible, like, that sort of like, you know, the Bible was an untruth? It seems to me like...
But, you know something else as well? This goes back to a film that I used years, when I, like, 2016. It was called Millennium. And what it was is they are time travellers. And what it is their world is dying. They've got to smoke and all these other things. So what they do is they come back through history, through time, and they take this is the story, right? They take people off of doomed aeroplanes that are going to die. So that is exactly what's going to happen. They put replicas of them on the plane so that no one will know, and they take those people and they put them through a gate to change their future, but they cannot cause a paradox. My whole point is the paradox. But what it is somebody puts in bits of the film, someone's got one bit of a gun because a couple of planes have crashed and they found things, and he's got something else. He puts it together and he dies. But that, oh my God, hang on a sec. Oh, my cats are fighting. Hang on. Ooh. What's going on? That was a bad one. Go and see the other cat off, whatever that was. I'm sorry, we're really going for it down there, whatever that was.
So anyway, what I was saying was, if you was to choose any subject, right, you wanted to, and you got like 10 people that was sort of like very proficient at that subject, and they all got 10 questions wrong, you got to say something is wrong with this reality, because it's inconceivable.
That's part of that film. Listen, so basically, they cannot cause a paradox, and the man puts the two bits of gun together, and he causes a paradox. He dies, and then what that means is that now has changed the whole of the future, and it means their future doesn't exist because the paradox has happened. What I'm trying to say is, do you think these little paradoxes happen?
I think so. I think like it's like a butterfly sort of like flapping its wings like over here, like causes a hurricane over in Florida or whatever, which is, it sounds very extreme, but I think very minute things. I don't know whether they sort of like found a way to tweak reality, and it's like it's changing reality as we know it. Because, you know, if I turn out to someone, I've seen it. I've seen John do it. He's asked preachers like, and they.
What about
they just
the
say,
one you'd have talked about it before? What about the one with cemetery?
Cemetery. Now the thing is, I remember when I first moved up here a few years ago. I got on a bus like, and I actually thought they spelt it wrong, because I remember ARY at the end, and I thought, oh, that, you know, the council have made a mistake, like, you know, or sort of like the highways agency. But then I noticed that soon as I got home, and I had chills down my spine because I looked it up and I see that it's spelled that way now. And I know for a fact, 100%, that some people were talking about like the lemma with a silent M, but I know cemetery was ARY. It don't look right. If you get any of your people like in the chat room, you look at cemetery how it's spelled now, and you try and spell it the old way, like, and it'll get spell checked, so sort of like the new way with ERY. There seems to be a big thing with the Mandela effect. A's turn to E's a lot. Like I said, I think you got on something there. Basically, it's almost like a time travel.
Maybe this only happens to people who've woken up.
Possibly, quite possibly. So
because
obviously
your whole outlook looks different. You don't believe in the GLOBE and all that. You don't believe in these things. So everything has changed.
Maybe your brain light.
Maybe we cause the Mandela effect when we wake up.
I think so.
Sorry, I don't mean that. I mean the paradox when we wake up.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically, you know, if you've got 10 people that are quite proficient at their trade and they get 10 questions wrong, if you were sort of like in an industry or something like them, it's like an airline pilot. If you give an airline pilot 10 questions right, and there was 10 of them and they got every one of them questions wrong.
I think they're turning the churches all Catholic, because that church at Mickey's, so I told him that I'd worked it all out. I'd worked out how it all was, and actually there was just one religion, Catholic. And he agreed, he said, you're right. And then we looked up his church, which was Protestant, and it says in there, in a new Catholic way. How can it be in a new Catholic way? But if you understand that Protestant is a protesting Catholic, they're still Catholic. But every church is Catholic.
Yeah, yeah.
So how does that happen? How do they make a whole society believe there's more? Well, I don't know about Mormons, actually, because they do dress differently. But you've got like Protestant, Methodist, Evangelical, Baptist. There's loads of them, isn't there? They're all Catholic.
But strangest thing is, without
how
exception,
do they manage to do that?
It's quite strange that all of them are still on a spinning ball, because I speak to Jehovah's Witnesses every day. They're quite nice, actually. They actually know me by name and always have a chat with them, and I see them standing under the tree sometimes.
Oh, what, they include a globe, do they, in their thing?
But they're all. But I've actually said about a Jehovah's Witness before, and I've turned around and said, "What shape is the Earth like?" And straight away, like, they turn around and say, "Well, round." And I said, "What do you mean round? Like round in a big dish, like, or round in a ball?" And they say round in a ball, and I get into a conversation with them, and they
I didn't think the Bible covered the globe.
They get triggered, like, you know. And then remember one bloke, like in Gibraltar, like once he got the right arm, he got his ball. Because I said to him, I said, "Look, mate, you can have a chat with me if I can have a chat with you." And the thing is, they go back to their elders, and they just turn around and say, "I met a geezer like that thinks we live on like a flat stationary plane." You know, they'll get their head bitten off probably. I don't know, but I mean, without exception, nearly all the religions that I know, anyway, none of them.
I've got another Mandela effect for you.
Go on.
What it was is, I watched this girl's video, and then I looked at the comments, and what it was is, she's probably in her 30s, but she was saying that the Wizard of Oz, I don't remember it like this. I remember Dorothy with white socks. Dorothy has blue socks now. And there was things like that, and she said, I don't remember the Munchkins, they were holding guns, things like that. So, and it was quite incredible, because the video was made. So I put the video on, but then I put on the answers. Half the people said, "Well, she's right, she had white socks, blah blah blah." The rest said, "Oh, she couldn't have watched the film, she always had blue socks, they always had guns." Now I thought that was quite incredible, because that was the Mandela effect. But I wondered whether the people who saw her with white socks were watching the digitalised version, and the people who've watched the new digitalised one, she's got blue socks. I don't know, because I've got a video downstairs of Wizard of Oz. It's got to be 20 years old, DVD, and she's got blue socks.
Well, I'll tell you something.
But half the people don't remember her with blue socks, or even that she's got bows on her shoes, things like that. And you think, but those are fundamental things. Is it that people aren't watching, or? remembering or what? See, there's a Mandela effect going on in that, and they've watched a film.
Well, my friend Samantha, like, when I told her, like, that Sex in the City has changed to Sex and the City, she wouldn't believe it. She turned around and said, "No, Gal, it's wrong." And I said, "Well, get your box. She's got a box set, but actually, she's mislaid it somewhere."
Or is it? Listen, I've got another one. What it is it's Kamalia Harris, but I always called her. I didn't mean to. I was calling her Camilla. I always called her Camilla. When I talked to someone the other day, they said her name's Camilla. I said no, she's Kamalia. And it's like, there's that with her name. It's a sort of a Mandela-y thing, even just with her name, because a lot of people say she's Camilla, but she's Kamalia. So why do we call her Camilla?
Yeah, well, I mean, it does happen with people's names as well. I mean, even your name. I think I brought this up before. I said, I'm sure Pettit, like, is spelled differently. Remember we've done this before, like, because the thing is, the strangest thing is, you take it up.
Oh, it is though, Gary. You can have Pettit with P-E-T-I-T or P-E-T-T-I-T. It's petite without the E on it.
Yeah, but when I was up in Great Yarmouth a couple of weeks ago, there was there's something called Petite's Fairground, and I looked at it, and I thought of that straight away. I thought, my God, you know, you can spell it two different ways, but it's like Don Pettit, like the astronaut bloke, his name has changed as well, apparently. But it seems like people take an update as well because they don't know themselves, and maybe they are NPCs. And they just go along
with that film. How crazy that half the people said yes, she had white socks. No, they didn't have guns. And then there was a bit where the lion and they were all holding things. She said no, they were not holding a mallet. They were not holding an axe. Not an axe, something else. Another great big thing, and it's like, I don't remember that either, but it's probably in the video, but it's probably for a couple of, and then it's like, so she remembers, she says to Dorothy, "Fly, my pretties, fly," when they're outside, and she said, she didn't say this, but when you go to the film, she said something different, and people are going, well, she's an idiot, this person, and then the others are going, no, I believe you, I saw it like you. How does that happen when half the people see it like this girl's saying, and the other half see it with the blue socks, the bow, the guns? How does all that happen?
I notice it a lot with records that I know really well. I sometimes hear a record, like, and I hear a verse in it, and I think to myself, that don't sound right. And then I think to myself, hang on a minute, I might have done several recordings of it. And I'll try and find, like, the recording I originally sort of, like, knew, and you can't seem to find it anymore. There might be a little verse in it. I'll just pick up on it all the time. Sometimes I do a lot of karaoke, especially when I go out to Great Yarmouth. And there's two DeWolfs up there, like, in one of the pubs, like, and I always go up there. They're married together, actually, and when I go up there, like, I always do have a laugh and a joke, like, and I always do, like, karaoke with them. And I noticed that I know you could turn around and say, like, some karaoke records are done differently, but sometimes I hear on the radio, I'll hear a record on the radio, and I thought, out of my reality, that don't sound right. It sounds wrong. There's something in it that don't correspond with because I do quite a lot of singing, Karen. You know, I do a lot of karaoke, and I notice with certain records, like, how these changes. I think.
I've got another one of yours. You did this one, Mr. Monopoly, with the signs and that. It's in here saying that there's a Mandela effect. But do you remember with the pound signs? And I sent you a picture with the pound signs on it.
Yeah. If you ask 100 people, like, did the Monopoly man, like, have a monocle? Almost everyone's going to turn around and say yeah, and it's very surprising because in this reality, he's never had a monocle. He's never ever had a monocle. But there's some residue. Residue is something left over from the previous reality. Some people, there was a guy. I see a video with a guy. Had an old Monopoly set that had it with the monocle. No one else seems to have it, like, you know, so it sometimes the old reality seems to bleed through. It's like you said, I think we're making our own reality, like, and because this is what they're terrified of, we're all becoming more
so basically, we haven't got the people from the future, but if we all wake up and our own reality changes because we realise we're not living in this reality like they say we are, then we've changed everything, and maybe that changes it for the future with future children, etc. Everybody will change a bit, maybe. So we do the same thing like the film, but we just don't have the people from the future.
Because we've been so dumbed down, like, they let us believe like that we haven't got any power. But I think
Look, we're looking at Mandela here. He went to prison and then he became president of South Africa. How can you do that?
I think one enlightened person like us is equivalent to probably sort of like 20 or 30 of them. So the trouble is, this is what they're terrified of, is us getting together and I believe we can actually change reality.
But you know what? In the old Mandela, he was still married to Winnie, whatever her name was, his wife. She got the money. The second one, he divorced her. She didn't get any money when he died.
See, I don't remember him getting married again.
No, he was married to Winnie, whatever her name was, his wife. And then when he was imprisoned, remember, she was there trying to get him out and everything. And then when he died the second time, he wasn't married to her. He divorced her, and she didn't get anything. But the first time, she got his money. And it did happen, because I saw it on my mum's television. I just forgot.
Yeah. It's
but they love doing that to us. They don't want us to know what's really going on. And then you start, you think, am I mad? Or that's what they want. They want you coming and going, and they don't want you to find the truth, which a lot of us have.
I think we're co-creators, along with God, and the good angels. I think we're co-creators down here, and this is what they're terrified of. And we can create our own reality.
Listen, Gary, only 30% of the public supposedly voted in our election, and that's what they're telling you it is. So it probably was much less. And if that's the case, that's a vote of no confidence. We've had enough.
The thing is, they're two wings of the same plane, aren't they? They're all working for the banksters, so it doesn't matter who you vote for. I mean, I had people knock on my door.
They're selected, not elected.
Exactly. So it don't really matter who's in, because they're all puppets anyway. All of them, whether it's stateside or over here, they're all puppets. So it don't really make any odds. I think this reality is a lot stranger than what. I see a video the other day of a geezer going to prison. It was a video about coincidences. And some of these coincidences are beyond belief, but one of the biggest ones I've ever heard was a geezer called Will Young or something. Some black guy went into prison, and when he was in prison and he got let out, another guy with an identical name that looked, it could have been his twin brother, went into prison, and his name was Will. It's almost like the reality has been, something happened in the reality, and he's sort of jumped back in time or something, because another geezer went into prison, and he said, hello, Will, how are you? And he said, well, I've never seen you before in my life. He said, what do you mean? He said, it's the first time I've been in prison. And he said, well, no, you haven't. It was a different Will Young, who was identical. He could have been his twin brother. But it was he went, but they couldn't believe it. They found out that it was two separate people, but they couldn't find out what happened to the other bloke. This geezer was so, one of the wardens or something was so sort of taken back. He thought, this is really spooky, and he looked into it. So I think this place is a lot stranger than what we give it credit for. And I've had.
Yeah, but I just said, if say it was 2016, and many thousands of people woke up. Our reality is different from then, and more people have woken up, even if just from being, locked in our houses. People have woken up maybe about certain things. It's 15-minute cities. Who the hell wants them?
That was a lot to do, Karen, with what happened a few years ago to lock us up, because they realised what was happening. It was part of it, and we're waking up, and we're changing reality. Our collective consciousness is changing reality as we know it, and they're terrified of this, because
if only 30% of the public here, with all the immigrants they've invited in, voted, and it probably wasn't as many as that because they've lied. They had to make it look better than it was. Why tell us it's 30%? Because if it's that, it's still a vote of no confidence, because 70% of the country didn't vote. Don't forget, they've got permission to play with harp. I mean, they could be using harp to do things to us and make our memories go all weird. But you've got harp, you've got wars are to kill people off. It's not about, it's and then destroying buildings.
Do you know something?
They did it in London. They did it in London, and that was the end of Tartaria.
however unpleasant it is, like, for people to sort of like, you know, because I have to be careful what I say here, like, because you know when we first started off down at the West End, like in Hyde Park, like, and we're saying to people they've got cognitive dissonance, like, you know, which is why they can't see like a flat Earth. Well, I hope, I don't know how to say this, but some truth seekers maybe have got a little bit of cognitive dissonance because they're not accepting the Mandela effect. You know
what though, Gary? Listen, when you wake up, you go so far and you think, oh, right, it's this, this, and this. And over time, because we're open,
and it keeps on going on.
Because we're open, we've realised that, like, for instance, I know that maybe this isn't your pet subject, but originally everybody said the sun is thousands of miles away, not 93 million. Then it's turned into 200. Then it's gone down. I'm telling you, that thing we see going over our heads is just above the clouds. It's that close, but they've got us believing it's 93 million miles away.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a ball of plasma. I mean, you know, I've got my own theories like, on what the sun is, but none of us really know.
What I'm saying is, they've made millions of people believe that it's 93 million miles away when it's actually not far above your head.
If it was 93 million miles, there's something called the inverse square law of light that makes it impossible to see, because at every sort of like 100 miles, it depreciates by such a percentage that you couldn't have light. Could they turn around and say, like, oh, we're seeing the start of the universe, like, you know, distant galaxies.
I've made a little video. I don't think it's out yet. My daughter-in-law's got quite a good camera on her phone. She can take all the craters of the moon on her phone now. She thinks it's a program in the camera, because she said she zoomed into other things and it goes all blurry and then it finds itself. But when you go to the moon, you get absolutely perfect pictures, like you've got a big P900 or a P1000. You know, it's that kind of quality from a phone now. And she just can't believe it.
One of my big proofs, like, when I used to be on the Global Eye tour, and I mean, when I've done Cambridge, like, you know, with all the boys and the girls I may add, like, you know, and I was talking to a university professor, like, and I said to him, could you take me to your lab now, because I want to see you show me a gas pressure living next to a vacuum without solid separation. And his eyes glazed over. This is what happens to him. And I said, you know, you've got to show me. It's got to be demonstratable, repeatable, and measurable. If you take me in
Gary, I made a video the other day. You will love this. It's not out yet. It's about a guy that Lisa Serini took some pic. She was drawing on the pavement, and she was drawing. Oh my God, I can't remember his name now. But she was drawing him, and then one of his nurses said, I know who he is, and he created free energy machines. And I went and looked at it, and he tells you that he could make something that could levitate, and what it was is, in the vacuum, everything expanded. So there's absolutely no way astronauts can go to space or anything and be in a vacuum. They would expand like marshmallows.
I've been saying, like, back in probably a lot before a lot of other people, like, all the way. I remember I told you before, this is my specialist subject. I was 9 years old when the moon landings happened, and I said to my dad, like, I said that's done in the studio and all that. You know, I see it straight away, because when you're a kid, like, you sort of like can pick up on things. And I mean, the thing is, the more I started looking into it, I've actually got a video. It's on Telegram. I'll try and send it over to you, and it's like one of the WikiLeaks, and there's some offcuts of sort of like the fake moon landings in the Nevada desert. But I mean, no one's ever been to space, because you can't break through a solid barrier. We've got the firmament above us. You can't have. Listen, as soon as a university professor takes me into a lab and shows me A, water bending, and B, you know, they talk about meniscus like on the movie. On a needle, and you see a little bit of meniscus.
Oh, Gary, I like that one. I want you to show me water bending.
As soon as they take me in there and show me, like, a gas pressure living, if you remember, like, I had my about 5 or 6 years ago, I had my pressure container, and I had I was the second person to do it, the Marigold glove light in a vacuum, and I said, this is what people like. Like Tim Peake after work in space, like, you know, and it loses its dexterity because of taking all the vacuum out. What tends to happen is...
Listen, I saw this thing, and he was showing you, he was demonstrating it, And to make the thing levitate in the vacuum, everything expanded. So me and Amy had to stop and make a bit about the astronauts.
Well, it's not only that. A rocket can't work in a vacuum. A rocket has to have something to push against.
How can they make millions of people believe that?
Because most people, no disrespect, like they believe what they're told at school. They believe what their science teacher tells them, and no disrespect, the science teacher's just going by what he's been told in his textbooks. But if you notice a rocket taking off, it pushes against the ground. That's fine. When it's pushing against the air, that's fine also. But I actually wanted to do. I was going to get a big glass cabinet and I wanted to take it down to Hyde Park to show people that a rocket can't work in a vacuum. Because if it's long enough, if you put it in the middle, okay, if you have it near the end, it's going to push against the back, but it will stop a certain way. If you put that rocket in the middle of a big long tube, it's not going to move at all if it's in a vacuum, because it needs something to push against. An equal and opposite reaction. It still needs something to push against, and if you haven't got something to push against, so rockets can't work in a vacuum. No one's ever been to space. The rockets land in the ocean.
Their suits aren't going to protect them. Inside their suits, they're still going to expand like a marshmallow.
Well, the guy I was telling you about, the first guy that done like the glove experiment in a vacuum chamber before I did it, he was one of my idols, like a guy called Ralph Renee, who you can Google. Him and Bill Casey were the first two people in the 70s to realise it was all rubbish. Well, he went to NASA one day and he turned around and said, look, he said, you know your spacesuits? He said, to prove to me like they're any good, what I want you to do, I've done calculations. He was a brilliant mathematician as well. He's passed away now. Bill Casey has as well. But he was a brilliant mathematician. He worked out the maths, and he said, like, I want you to suit up a couple of your guys and send them to 3 Mile Island, where there was a nuclear explosion, where they sort of like had it was a forerunner of Chernobyl. Actually, there was like it overheated. One of the reactors overheated there, and it was contaminated. And he said, I'll never open my mouth again if you send a couple of your guys in there. Of course they couldn't, because their suits ain't going to protect them from radiation, if radiation exists, which is another question altogether. But no, the thing is, people just believe what they're told, don't they? And we're inquisitive.
Yeah, because they're using television to be educated, and all it's doing is lying to you.
Well, do you know something? I mean, the thing is,
look who plays NASA the most. YouTube.
Yeah. There's been plenty of people on their deathbed, like ex-CIA men or one.
How did you get this? This is with YouTube. The police, to announce what happened to Ron, my friend who was shot in America, they put it on YouTube. They're a police force, and they put their videos on YouTube. What does that tell you?
Well, you know, another thing as well, like, I'm a little bit dubious about, like, this new thing they're pushing now. I don't know if you're watching it, but there's a few in our community that are saying, like, the Earth is travelling upwards. Basically, we still live on a flat Earth, but it's moving upwards, which is utter garbage. You know, and
I think I know who that is. Dell from Beyond the Curve, because someone was talking about it in the chat room.
And others, and to be honest with you, like I think like people that are talking that, like, it's been infiltrated, because it's utter rubbish, absolute rubbish. We live on a stationary plane, you know. It's not moving upwards.
It's crazy, yes. But someone put it in my chat room last week. But can I have another subject to look at? We've had the astronauts. What can I put up next, Gary?
Yeah. I'll tell you what. When we put up, well, it's on a similar vein. Like, why don't we put up the SpaceX a little bit, because I've been watching that, like, you know, and it's like, for me, it's my comedy hour. When I watch the news, like, and I watch the SpaceX, it's similar to like the International Space Station, because I know it's just a lot of old rubbish, and to believe that I can still get people that personally know people that believe it, you know. It's quite incredible, really. I mean, you don't need to put something else up. I'll just go over that very quickly. I mean, it's like
there you go.
It's just like, well, it's just a comedy hour for me. I mean, you know,
it was like that when Captain Kirk, he went up in a rocket to the edge of space and came down or whatever, and the whole thing was just a joke. And it went bing bang bing bang as it came down. I thought he'd be killed in it.
Do you know something? The strangest thing is, it's all simpler than what you thought. It was a magician's trick. I said this years ago. I said, what happens is...
Yeah, it's green
like
screen things, isn't it? They just changed the scenery.
No, when you see them getting a rocket, yeah, they do get in a rocket. They get out there and get in a rocket, like, and then they get out of it. They get hidden away. The rocket takes off. The rocket takes off, lands in the ocean, like, and when everyone's gone home, they just come down, light their head off. Like, it's a lot easier than what you think it is. And if you remember, I said years ago there was 3 guys, like, in 1967, Gus Grissom, Ed White and Roger Chaffee. They were meant to be the first people. He was actually, everyone thinks Neil Armstrong was a poster boy. Gus Grissom, Virgil Gus Grissom was the poster boy, and he famously stuck a lemon light on the lunar lander light, and or on the module or something.
They don't even agree with if there were stars or not. Some say they saw stars, some say they didn't.
But the thing is, like, I think they had to have people that were vulnerable. Maybe Gus Grissom, like, they said, look, we're not going to be able to have this geezer on board, because when we tell him, like, that we can't really get to space because no one can break through, like, a solid barrier like the firmament, which we don't know
but
what the firmament is.
We had the car going into space. They don't talk about that one anymore, do they?
Well,
they don't include it in anything anymore. Do you remember we had months of that bloody thing going up, and how wonderful Elon Musk was?
I think like the thing that happened like a few years ago, like, it was a big test. It was like a...
Yeah, but you know what? You can't work out when the years are now, because it was 3 years in our houses. You can't remember, like, was that 5 years ago or 6 or 2? You can't remember.
Well, do you know something? It's amazing how quickly, like, people forget about things, you know. And it's like, I think that was a litmus test at the time, like, you know, to see who would actually fall for it. And, you know, a lot of people I knew fall for it. But I will say one thing: a lot of people that I know very close to me, they're not having any more, like, of the thingy bob anymore. Like, I don't want to say.
Yes,
like,
lots of people aren't either now. My children, everything.
They're not having any more.
But you know what, Gary? I was going up to London. I was the only one on the train.
Well, I mean, I told you that story, didn't I?
I was a rebel.
When I got a flight to Portugal, and I walked on with my exemption pass, and the stewardess said to me, "I'm sorry, sir, on this flight you must wear a mask." And I said, I beg to differ, my dear, but it's done by consent only. I don't have to wear a mask. I don't have to give you the reason why I'm not wearing a mask. And she went in to see the captain, and the actual plane was probably delayed, like, and they and obviously the pilot, like, must have sort of, like, went to his superiors, and she come back, like, and said to me, "Oh yes, sir, you are quite correct, but do you mind sitting on your own?" I thought, that's great, because, you know, I'm a lazy git, you know that. I like to sort of, when I'm sleeping on your couch when I come down. I sort of went through, and I thought I can lay across and it was quite funny, because you get all these people going, like, back in it, moving sideways as I'm walking down the aisle. You know, it was almost like a comedy show. I wish I had a phone out. They was all going, "Whoa, I don't want to go near you, mate. You haven't got your mask on."
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
It was so comical. And, you know, something that was, for me, it was surreal for me, because to think that people, like, fell for that, it was like the biggest confidence trick, like, ever played on humanity after the world was. I mean, the thing is, Karen, like, I've always felt like this. If I actually thought, like, if I was the age, say I was like 25, 30, and they said to me, like, "Oh, you know, you got to go to war, you're being conscripted," I'll turn around and say, "Well, you have to bring me up in prison, like, because I'm not going to kill anyone," because I knew from a very early age, like, what was going on, like, and there was a few people, like, running the show, and they're sort of, like, making money out of both sides and everything else. You know, you have to be very careful you tell this people, because I've actually got family members, or close family members, like, they're in the military, and, you know, they never speak to me again, like, because these are very delicate subjects, all of these, you know. But, you know, we're a few years down the line, but
imagine how many people have given their lives for their country, and that was
exactly
supposed to be what happened, giving your life.
Yeah, And you know, it's like if
I mean, how do
if you
they
go
know
back to
that?
sort
You
of
know, when they're talking about all those battles in France, how do you not know they're going, well, this will kill 25 soldiers off. Just get them fighting in themselves. And all the fire and everything, they think they're fighting the Germans, but they're not. They're just fighting each other. That's what Jacob's Ladder was about. Except they had a pill to make them a bit more superhuman. But they started shooting it themselves, killing each other off, rather than the baddies.
I mean, well, if you remember back in the 60s, and I really admired him for it. Like Muhammad Ali got drafted, and they was gonna post him out to Vietnam, and he said, like, I'm not doing it because I'm not going to kill my. I don't have to be responsible and see sort of like my fellow human beings killed, and they stripped his titles away from him. And you know, he was one of the very few people that sort of like said, no,
what the Romans wanted him to do.
Well, yeah,
I do notice every now and again, like actors are given awards and they give them back.
Yeah, it does happen. It does happen. I mean,
they probably ruin their career. They don't realise they've ruined their career now, but.
Yeah, but there was people around, you see, there was conscientious objectors in the First and Second World War, even before that, and some people got sort of like, you know, shot for cowardice and things like that.
The war for them has been a great big movie. They've made millions of films out of that war.
Yeah, made millions of films, but at the time, what you got to remember, like a lot of the elite families like made money out of it. I mean, in the Second World War, Prescott Bush, who's still alive today, George Bush, like, who's still alive, the young one, his grandfather, he had sort of like metal, he had steel like foundries and all that, and he sold Hitler, like, even during the war, like loads of steel.
It's all corrupt.
How comes the geezer
never
got
because it's all one system, they can do that. And you know what? The thing you were maybe talking about is totalitarianism. I think we all live in totalitarianism. And I'm not even sure what Tartarian is anymore, because it's got Tarian, like, you've got Authoritarian, Totalitarian, and you've got Tartarian. They're obviously all part of the same thing.
You got the 13 Illuminati families, like, and then it bridges down from there, like, it goes down from there, and it structures off, like, and you know, you'll get these elite families, like, that sort of like, you know, they'll never get done for treason or anything. They'll make money out of both sides for wars or for anything else. You know,
thing, what they're doing to the people and making people. Because you see, what I think is that this is when I found these astronauts. One was paused, and I thought they've made you believe that they're really outside and they're doing this work on the space station. They've made you believe in something that wasn't real, and that takes your freedom away.
Well, don't you remember? If you remember, when I come down to you and I found that book, Ask an Astronaut by Tim Peake.
Yeah, he's up there. Hi, Tim.
He's still there. And if you remember, I had an open invitation to go on any mainstream channel for him or others to dispute my claims, and it just fell on deaf ears because we say, well, don't want someone like him on blinking mainstream TV. It would never happen in a million years.
Traitor. He's a traitor.
I'll be a traitor, wouldn't I? Yeah.
No, not you. Him.
Well, he is, yeah. Yeah, but I would be to them. I would be the bleeding traitor.
Well, you are to them because they're trying to make sure that their thing wins. I mean, what's happened? Listen, what has happened to that car?
Well, it never went there in the first place, did it?
Well, I know, but now we're on to SpaceX instead. Well, scrap that one. The car's gone now.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's all done by the same people, and it's like you had Skylab in the 70s. You had a thing called Skylab, like, and that was rubbish. You could see that's terrible. If you can get up like a little video of Skylab, it looks like something that they made in Blue Peter. Okay, 1 minute.
Let me just put up Skylab because we were looking at SpaceX.
Right, I'm so sorry, but there was a thing called Skylab, and it was like it was so ridiculous. It looks like it was made out of Blue Peter cardboard boxes and egg boxes.
Oh, so I spelled it wrong. Hang on, Skylab.
Skylab.
Skylab. I can't see the flipping keys. That's it. Skylab. Okay, what does Skylab now?
it looks like a cardboard box, doesn't it? Oh my God! You know,
that's it. Oh my God! What else can you say?
It's a terrible dilemma. Karen, it's a terrible dilemma. Like when I'm 64 now, but it's a terrible dilemma. Like when you're a kid and you can see all these things, like, and everyone else like is going, "Wow, look, we're in space," and one thing and another. You know, it's all rubbish. It's because there was a time when I felt like I was on my own, and of course now I've got my tribe. Now I've got thousands of people around the world like that think the same as me, and you know, if I've done my little bit to sort of like enlighten them about what I knew, because obviously like at my age, living through it and actually seeing like.
I'm looking at these pictures now, Skylab, and they're over clouds. And I made a video a few months ago about this high altitude balloon that went up to 30 miles up. Those clouds are closer, so they're not even 30 miles up. And that's real, because don't forget, they can, you know, this AI thing, right, it started a long time ago. It started in books. I made another video about that. AI has been around for maybe hundreds of years. And with CGI and all that, they can just insert the plane into the fake footage, or the Skylab into the fake footage, and make people believe that they're looking at clouds that are hundreds of miles away, when they're not.
Skylab was probably done like in a studio somewhere. I very much doubt whether they had the technology then to sort of like what they do with the ISS,
they did in a
like
way,
a big water
because
tank.
they made you believe that they were up in space. Not you. They didn't make you believe, but they made people believe that they were up in space.
Do you know something? Me and my mate was talking about this the other day, and we were saying like with regards like to the ISS. Can you imagine like these ones that have been up there like for 6 months or whatever, like how stinky it becomes because they haven't got proper showers or whatever. So it's like it's the hygiene of it, you know.
Oh, here's a Skylab bath here. There's a man having a shower in the Skylab.
Yeah, then it looks so ridiculous, doesn't it?
He's got like a great big. It's not a bag, but it's like a barrel bag. It's the shape of a barrel, and he's got that around him. But you know what?
Like I said,
because molecules of water can leave that thing, and because there's so many wires in the ISS space station, these little globbles of water will go into the wires and fuse everything. It's not Earth.
Do you know something? If you look at the ISS, like, I mean, I've showed photographs like to people that are electricians, and they all turn around and say like, the guy that wired it was the worst electrician in the world. There's all wires everywhere. I mean, you would not have them walking around all those wires. But you know what that's for, don't you? That's to make you believe that it's some amazing thing when it isn't. It's just a bunch of stupid wires. No. I actually think what it is, it's to show people like us, look what we can do, and they still don't get it. We can have this vehicle.
And
like,
most people don't notice all the cameras they've got set up are just to film them making their fake things.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think what it is like, and I always say this, like I always say it. I say they make it as ridiculous as possible, like the thing that happened. If it's like for people like us to turn around, they say no, look what we can do, and they still don't get it. You know, that's basically what it is. Because
the thing is, the whole point of all of it is to frighten us all the time.
Well,
make us believe in things that aren't real,
and
frighten us most of the time.
Electric is water's a very good conductor of electricity. Like, you know, I know a lot about my electrics.
They should be fried, shouldn't they?
Well, at the end of the day, like, you can't mix. Everyone knows you can't mix sort of like water with.
It was okay till we got our mobile phones, because you know, even on a mobile phone on a video, I can zoom in on it. I can see things that I can do on my phone. So they were stupid to think that we wouldn't notice all the globules of water floating around the ISS space station while they're making their fake little videos. And they've got their hair, and the women have got their hair all back brushed. It's pathetic.
Like I said to you, Karen, what it's all about, it's like, I think it's more to show us like the stupidity of the general public, and they just believe it. I mean, you know, you'll speak to people in the street.
Many people don't believe in it now.
Yeah, I think more and more people are starting to. I've noticed.
And why aren't people angry when they're not even talking about the recession that we're in right now? that they're spending millions and millions of pounds every day on something they're not really doing. Obviously taking the money and using it for other things. But NASA's a big studio where they're filming it all. The BBC and them make all our programmes.
But it's all rubbish, isn't it? Because it's all fractional banking.
How come people aren't angry? We're in a place where, you know, like, I'm not being horrible or biased, but, you know, people are telling me that immigrants get asked, they get given £1,000 to come here, and then they get this and this and this. So it's all just bananas. The whole thing. It's just the people living here are poorer than the people coming in.
I suppose the only thing you can sort of like say is really like, you know, that thank God, like, that a lot of people now are waking up, like, you know. But the strangest thing is they still won't let go.
There's no one to help us.
They won't let go. They won't let go of a spinning ball in space, though. That is the one last thing to go for a lot of people. It's do
you know what? It is hard though, because you start off in this sort of globe place that you've got football teams, they've got colours. Oh, I like that blue team. Oh, I like that red team. And what it is this is the hard thing for people, because we're so programmed with all that. You've got to let go. There are no football teams in your life anymore. There is no this blue or red team. There's no colour thing anymore, because everybody's associating that team with that colour, and there's none of that anymore. It just does.
Well,
it's just so unimportant, because that's set up for the programming thing.
Well, one of my compassionate neighbours is a mad Man United supporter, and he phoned me up earlier and he said, "Oh, Gal, you won yesterday, like you hammered us like 3-0." And I thought, no, I didn't win, and I don't support. I followed Spurs like years ago, and I still like watch a little bit of football because I enjoy it. But I know the ridiculousness of it, like, because, you know, it's you got 11 sort of like 11 geezers like on each side. They're paid like exorbitant amounts of money. Oh, I'll give you a little thing. Like, one of my other compassionate neighbours. This is how things have changed. Right, we was watching some footage of George Best in 1968. Right, now we worked out how much he was paid. The most he was ever paid in 1968 was £1,000 a week, which, okay, it's quite a lot of money. But then when we Google sort of like Mbappe, what his leading name is, for France, he is now on £1 million a week. So what we did a relative calculation back to 1968, what George Best should have been earning in relative terms. And do you know George Best in 1968, right? If he's earning £1 million a week, this other fella now, like for France, George Best should have been taking home 70 grand a week. And was in relative terms. So just because he's probably the best player in the world at the time, after Pele, maybe the second or third best player, but he was earning £1,000 a week, which, no disrespect, is a lot of money, but it's nothing comparable proportion. I mean, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there.
On the Wogan show, he was really weird on the Wogan show. He didn't die, I don't think. Well, maybe he did die a bit after that, but he was really weird. He was just an alcoholic.
Yeah, well, that's right. And if you remember, he got a liver transplant, didn't he? And
but that might be part of the stories, because he wasn't really a good footballer. He's just an actor playing a part.
Well, yeah, but let's put it this way, like, yeah, an actor playing the part, but I suppose it's all relative, isn't it? We don't know what's going on. We don't know if some games are thrown like for sort of like, oh, listen to this, right? When the boxing was on,
say a team has won the league and they've got 2 or 3 more games to play, they'll always lose those.
Yeah, I mean, I watch football. I know sort of like it's all part of the programming, but, you know, I used to play football like years ago, and when I would see my mate at the weekend, I'll see another couple of geezers like who used to play football with when we were younger. But if going back to sort of like, still in sport, like going back to boxing, talking about Muhammad Ali earlier, when the Joshua fight happened, I went and see a couple of my mates like down the road, like, and I haven't seen it for a while, like, and we watched the fight. And I said before the fight, the other guy's going to win by a knockout in round 5. And everyone was going the other way. And it just come to me. These things come to me sometimes, and no one, only his brother, one of his brothers, like, put on a straight knockout, and he got 7-2. Well, I'm not a betting man, but I bet I would have got sort of like 30 or 40 to 1. But the thing is, you can't beat the bookies. I see a program on the TV. I might have won a few £100 or a couple of grand, but
Who
I
were
don't
you
place
talking
bets.
about, Gary? Muhammad Ali? No, what was his name?
Joshua had a fight. We were talking about Muhammad Ali earlier.
I'm trying to put a different picture on the video. Who do I put up then?
Put Anthony Joshua, and he lost. He got really beaten up badly like a couple of weeks ago. But I could have won a couple of grand like on that if I'd have put some money down. But I'm not a betting man.
There he is.
Yeah, he got badly beaten up. But I predicted like round 5. I'll tell you something about betting as well. I see a program, and what it was, they done this at Cambridge or Oxford University. They do some good things at universities, and they did a survey on like that. Now a lot of people out there that bet are not going to like what I'm going to say here. They done a survey on lifelong gamblers, like they go to bookies, and they said 95 or 96% of them, there's about 2 or 3% rate roughly even with regard to sort of like maybe a grand either way, like either winning a grand or losing a grand. And then the 1% that make money, they have to put it in the same bracket like a lottery winners, because they have to put it in the same bracket. They're probably never going to a bookies. Now, I've actually turned around to people and I've said to them, like, you know, if I stood outside the bookies and I said to them, excuse me, mate, do you realise that, you know, if you gamble all your life, the best you can hope for is probably to break even? They don't like hearing that. And I've done it. I've tried it on people. And the strangest thing is with gamblers, right, Karen, they only tell you about times when they win money. They never tell you about times they lose. And I was speaking to a bloke the other day about it, and he said, my brother won £400 on the fight. Like, you know, he didn't predict a round like you, Gal, but he won £400, and I turned around and said, well, I wonder what odds I'd have got, like, if I'd have sort of like, you know, because I predicted round 5. But he said to me, on Ladbrokes now, you can, like, it will tell you how much you're up or down, because it's all computerised. And he said, my brother, like, is up £300. And I said, oh, right. I said, well, what about, like, any other bets he does? He says, oh yeah, some of the other bookies don't do that, because I'm very interested in statistics and maths, Karen, like, and I'm very inquisitive about these things. And he said to me, oh yeah, he said not all bookies do it, so I should imagine he's down. But I mean, the thing is, he said he's £300 up. But you imagine, like, say somebody, it's no disrespect, it's like a waste of a life, you know. Can't you do other things with your life rather than sort of like spend a whole lifetime going into bookies when the best you're going to hope for is to break even, you know? And I think to myself, isn't there better things to do? You know, I love going to racing. When I've been to horse racing quite a few times, like, because I just like horses, like, and I never lay a bet. I did once actually. I laid a bet and I won £50, like, but I've never done it again.
Well, I've got Anthony Joshua up. Next subject, because we've been going for an hour now. So
right,
next
okay.
subject.
We'll have one more quick subject, right? One to end with, because this is very sad. Like, my favourite programme comes on in 25 minutes. It's a programme called Brassic, and you can only get it on Sky before, and it's on Sky Mix now, and it's so funny. If anyone out there hasn't watched Brassic, like, you got to watch it, because it's a little bit like a mixture of between Shameless probably and Only Fools and Horses, like, you know. It's quite hilarious actually, and I missed the first 2 episodes, and one of my compassionate neighbours got it up on Netflix, like, and I watched it round his, and it's, I don't know, because I still watch the TV, you know. I find some things quite amusing. But right, my last subject is, you know, just recently, like, Mohammed Al Fayed passed away, didn't he? You know,
Did
like
he?
the ex-owner.
I saw something about that. I didn't realise
Mohammed Al Fayed.
Whoops. Oh, wrong one.
I think that's his name anyway.
Yeah, I don't know how to spell it actually. Oops.
Well, let's just leave it at that then. I'm sure all the listeners know what I'm talking about. Well,
Yeah.
Basically, I picked up on something. You get these people that are very wealthy. When they pass away, you get all these women coming out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, he raped me and he done this to me, he done that to me," and whatnot. But they never seem to do it like when the dude's alive. Now, I'm not saying this kind of thing doesn't happen, so I don't want sort of like a lot of the women out there saying, "Oh, Gary's been a little bit hard," like, you know, these things do happen. I know they do. But it's always very bizarre to me, always, because I pick up on things, Karen. I think to myself, is it?
Why wait till he's dead to disgrace him?
Well, no. The thing is, right, Karen. I don't suppose anything to do with like.
Well,
he's
here you
probably
go.
got
Yeah,
like,
he dies at 94.
He's got a few billion. Well, yeah, he's got a couple of billion in the bank, like, and maybe like they might be after a little bit of it. I mean, would them same like women, like, if you turned around and said to them, "Listen, okay, we're going to drag his name through the mud now, which he can't answer himself anyway because he's dead, but you ain't going to get any money out of it," would they suddenly just disappear then? You know, you got to ask yourself. I mean, the thing is, it always seems to me like when you get someone who's very wealthy, like, pass away, you get all these people coming out of the woodwork. He's done this, he's done that, he's done the other. You know, it's happened numerous times before, but they never do it when they're alive. And you're getting all these other people now, like the ex sort of like director of Harrods saying, "Oh yeah, I knew about it, but I didn't want to say anything, one thing and another." And it's, I mean, if my wife, if I was married, like, you know, I'd never been married, Karen, you know that. I've had loads of girlfriends, as you quite rightly know. But if I had a wife, like, and she come home and she turned around and said, "Here, never guess what happened?" Because, you know, I can handle myself. I used to work at doors and all that. I've done property minding a lot. I've been a minder. If he said, "Oh, Mohammed Al Fayed, like, keeps on touching me up," I'll go in there and knock him out. You know, I don't care about the consequences. You know, I'd go. It all seems very bemusing to me. That sort of like, it always seems to happen.
Almost can't wait for them to die. This is what I also find really crazy. Listen, we had that one with Jimmy Savile, but Keir Starmer, I put a video out before the election. For they dropped the case 9 years ago and he didn't know. He was chief prosecutor. And then he was also chief prosecutor of the post office people. He prosecuted those poor innocent people who constantly said there was something wrong. And he was in charge of that. I think he's got very, very bad judgment.
If you remember on another podcast, I did mention about the post office. To me, that stinks of like being set up like and faults.
Listen, you do not want a new system in your company. It will always be the same. They did it with the CSA. It's done it with everything that they put in as a new system. Everything is wrong for friggin' months, and then it ruins your case. They can't find it. It goes on like that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the theory about the post office, it might be they might have had like a 24-digit password, like, but someone that got the sack or something might have had that password, and he could quite easily have infiltrated all of those computers, like, and then channeled money, like, to wherever, to sort of like Fiji or anywhere he wanted, to the Cayman Islands, you know, anywhere where they're not going to investigate, Jersey, where they're not going to investigate things too deeply, because. But the thing is with that, right, what I find very bemusing, if you got like 2 or 3 people like that got their finger in the till, it's understandable. But when you got hundreds, you'd have thought someone would have said, "Hang on a minute, something ain't right here," because they kept on saying was, "Oh, Fujitsu was saying, like, whoever they are, like, was saying, oh no, there's nothing wrong with our system, like our system's fail safe," but. I've actually done this on a podcast before, Karen. I've got a cousin, like, and I do see us together, like, and I turn around and say, "He's my cousin," like, you turn around and say, "Nah, Gal, I don't believe it." You know, we're like chalk and cheese, but he's highly intelligent. I mean, about 30 years ago, he was into computers. He done his apprenticeship, like, with BT, and he's a computer genius. And when computers used to go down, like, you know. It's different now, like, but back in the day, they used to call him up and say, "We've had the engineers in and they can't sort it out. Will you come in and sort it out for us?" And he used to do it. And he said to me one day, he said, "Know something, Gal?" He said, "If the general public knew what I knew, they'd probably just go into shops and buy things." So I said, "Why's that, Mark?" He said, "Because, you know, there's people in mainly in Eastern Bloc countries, and basically that they do something called fishing, but it's fishing with a P. It's not fishing like, you know, you're catching a carp like down a canal. And what happens is every time you make a transaction, they're not going to do people like us like to do things, but you get these online shoppers who do it all the time. They get a little bit more details, a little bit more details, a little bit more details, and then sometimes like they can break their code. One of my compassionate neighbours is also a genius. He showed me. He said, "Look at this girl." He said there's this invention where it breaks down people's passwords, and he said 24-digit passwords. Yeah, it takes up to 20 years to break it, but most people have between 8 and 10 digits like on their words, sometimes a little bit more. And every time you make a transaction, if you're online long enough, like they can infiltrate your password. This is why people like have their bank accounts embezzled, like for sort of like cleared out and whatever. But if the general public knew all this, it's like the fractional banking system. Like if the general public knew how the banking system worked, there'd be a revolution tomorrow. Someone said that. I think it was George Washington or someone. Yeah. And he told me, my cousin said to me, he said, something, Gal, he said, like, it's quite frightening, really, how systems are infiltrated, like, and you've got people working on it all the time. This is even when people are not even scam you, like phone you up to scam you. Every time you make a transaction, like they're saying, "Oh look," but you've got to be online long enough. But most people are quite sensible now, and it can take sort of like 20 minutes or something, or half hour to break someone's password down. But it does happen, and he showed me on YouTube, like the compassionate neighbour showed me passwords being broken down. Of course, the more numbers you get, the harder it gets. I mean, if you've got sort of like a 15-digit password, or a 20-digit password, or 24, the guy said it can take up to 20 years to do, so it's out of the question. But when you've got like, some people have got very small passwords, and if you're online long enough, so basically folks out there, don't spend loads of time when you're buy things as quick as you can, like, and don't sort of like linger, because there's unsavoury characters out there trying to sort of like break your password down. But no, we're going off on a tangent a little bit, like I usually do, Karen. Yeah, basically, with regards to Mohammed Al Fayed, you got, there's not just one or two, like there's like scores and scores of women like coming out now, and listen, maybe some of it is genuine, maybe it's all genuine. It just seems a bit suspicious, like that when anytime someone dies it always seems to be some of a load of money. Like it's not like a geezer like Fred the Dustman, is it? Like because he ain't got nothing. It's someone like that has loads of money, and you get all the people come out of the woodwork like wanting a slice of the cake.
So I've just showed on there that basically all those poor people that were prosecuted by the post office or Keir Stabner, and there he is in the House of Commons 8 months ago denying that he had any part of it or didn't know, when actually it's his office that's possibly been doing it since the 1990s. But they have a new system in which has done it. It's just disgusting. I just couldn't see why you'd want him. In fact, someone I know says that no one wanted him.
Well, the way I look at that post office thing, someone at the CPS, because do you know something, like, no disrespect, like some of these people, like,
do you think that might have happened? But then wouldn't they have brandished that person and they're going to prison and they caused it all?
I find people that they might be highly intelligent in their subject, but they've got no common sense. Someone with common sense, like from the CPS, like, would have said, look, there's far too many of these cases going through now. Obviously, there's something wrong, because someone actually did early on, like, and he got hushed up, like, this is why I think it's all bent, because someone turned around and said, look, this can't be right. There must be a fault with the computer system.
Don't forget, they want our life as hell.
Well, the thing is, if they have a 24-digit password, right, they're never going to get into it. It might take 20 years, but if that guy's already got the password, he can do it straight away, can't he?
I just said the same thing happened with the CSA when they did the money payments. That happened there. Any new system they're in's got a glitch in it and does these things. Every system they put in. At the moment, I had a problem with Asda because they've put a new system in. And the new system doesn't recognise the old system at all. So, say you bought something yesterday in the old system, Today in the new system, it wouldn't know who you are and if you bought anything. All systems make problems.
They were told like the central office can't get into that particular sort of like mainframe computer like and look at the figures. But now we've heard that they could. So and they can sort of like.
That was the same. You know, we had lockdown and everything, and then suddenly you find out Boris had a party. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? All of it.
It's what I'm saying. It's what I'm saying to you again, isn't it? Was that plan like? Is it to say, look what we can do, like, and they still don't get it, or are these people just?
You watched that, didn't you? That BBC film from the 1960s, when that guy's being interviewed, and basically goes in and they start telling him things, and he's a bit like, well, and they said, well, we bugged you, so we know you had an affair. And then he gets taken to this room, and they say, see all this? This is 3 years' times news, rockets and nuclear explosions. And he's going, how can you do this? He goes, I know how you can do it, because we can't go there to substantiate what you're saying. And anyway, he said, I don't want to do it. And he said, well, see you 8 to 30 Monday morning. Because you can get out of it, because otherwise they'll tell his wife that he had an affair. And it's a film. But they told you in 1967 what they were doing. Making the news in advance.
Everything's a big script. Anyway, listen, Karen, I've got to go because I'm bursting to go to the loo, and my favourite programme's on in 10 minutes' time. So,
well, can we just finish the hangout then, and then we say goodbye, and then you go?
Yeah. Well, basically, all I'm saying is, listen, I don't want any women listeners out there to think I'm being a little bit harsh, but it just seems like that any time someone passes away, why don't they do it beforehand? Because they said like he had so much power. But I mean, the thing is with me, I know he had minders and one thing or another, but that wouldn't scare me. If my wife come home and said to me, oh, Mohammed Al-Fayed like has been touching me up like in the staff room and all that, I'll go down there like and do the minders at the same time as I do him, So my point is, it's a bit disingenuous, like they all leave it until these people pass away and not do it in real time. Is it because they're after a little bit of the cherry on the cake? Well, I'm leaving that up to you folks, whatever you think. But you've got like scores and scores of them coming out now saying like, oh yeah, and they're all thinking like, well, maybe like we can get some money out of his estate or something. I don't know. I've given up. We're trying to work out what's going on in the world, but that does seem a logical assumption, doesn't it?
Well, when you realise everything that is involved in that is all lies, maybe the whole thing that he was in is a lie as well, because, it just is all a lie, all of it. Very quickly, because I know you want to go in that, but you know what? To have a monarchy, which is what we talk about, the royal family, they have to have a parliament. You have to have a parliament and a king for a monarchy. So when they say Charles doesn't have any part of anything, what a load of rubbish. And we know it's all a game and scripted and all this kind of stuff. So he must be he's part of the game.
They all are. And the more sort of like woke you become, you sort of like suss it out straight away. And this is why,
some things are real, but probably 95% of it isn't. And when they pick up on these stories all the time, they've got to show you again and again and again. Those are the fake ones.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, like, you can spot it a mile off, and I just find it a big comedy show. I mean, I still watch quite a lot of TV because there are some good things on the television, and I get stories from it, sort of like to try and do podcast reviews.
Well, I can't watch. I can't watch films very much because, say, Tom Cruise comes on, I think, oh my God, it's Michael J. Fox, and all I can see is Michael J. Fox. So I'm a bit funny about television, but yeah, I have to find a few things that are just basic. Like I watched something called there's this barn and they mend things. They're old things. The repair shop, it's called. I watched that. Things like that. I don't want to watch BBC One, BBC Two. I don't want to watch the news. Any documentaries? No documentaries because they're a load of rubbish.
Do you know the bloke that runs that repair shop? He might have. You got certain rules you've got to abide by, and he's been ostracised now. Apparently, like he got caught beating his beating his ex-missus up, or he's doing something to her, I don't know, and he's not on it anymore.
The black guy, you mean?
Yeah. You've got all the old episodes and all that. But you know something, all these things that happen, you don't know whether he didn't play by the rules, like, and it's just like I told you that story about that Strauss or Spice or whatever his name was, like the guy that when he went into Fort Knox and he scraped like the gold bars, and he noticed it was all red underneath, so there was like a load of bricks painted like painted gold, like, and he went to.
I want to know who built the old buildings and how old they actually are, because. You know, I was showing Jimbo the other day this video about them making bricks and how they had to make them. So if they made them in a kiln, I think they could get to about 8,000 bricks in a burn. And in the fields, they said they were 40 feet high or something. You think, well, that just couldn't be right. But basically, they couldn't manufacture them to the 1800s. So how does Hampton Court happen if they weren't manufacturing bricks? That was Henry VIII.
But very, very quickly, like, about that guy, what happened to him, because he came out, like, and obviously, like, he was in the European Parliament, they ruined his life. I think he ended up hanging himself. He's like, I'm not 100% sure.
You don't know whether that character was just dismissed. Let's kill that character off, and then he can be that character. In
the papers the next day, because he said, like, there's no gold in Fort Knox, he slept with prostitutes, he's done this, he's done the other. So this J bloke, or whatever his name is, like, the one that shot, maybe he's sort of like ain't gone with a script, like. And
you know what? Just a few months ago, it wasn't my video, someone else's video, but it was that. Oh my God, what's his name? Epstein was actually on one of the dollars. His face is on the back of the dollar thing, and you're like, oh my God! Like, I put that video out, and I was just like, my God, what the hell are we living in?
Karen,
Okay, we'll say goodbye for the hangout, and I'll say goodbye to you afterwards. But thank you very much, Gary, for all your interesting subjects.
Listen, and my opinions, like, are my own. Whether you agree with them or not is entirely up to you. But do your research and don't believe anything you're told. And basically, keep up, everyone out there, keep up the good work. And I love each and every one of you. And hope to see. If there's another Globe Light tour or something, like, I'll be there again. You know, if there is one.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Gary, for your amazing mind, because you do have lots of subjects to talk about. And thank you very much, chat room, and everybody that's listened to Gary.
Yeah, lovely. Well, thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.